All right, there we go. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for a day in the life of an engineer. My name is Alex Liebig, and I'm with the Engineering Career Services. Tonight, we have a special guest, Roxana Lopez of GCW. Here's a little bit about Roxana. Roxana was born in Guatemala, but raised in Los Angeles. Roxana moved to Las Vegas in 2005. She graduated valedictorian of her graduating class in high school and went to UNLV, where she earned her Bachelor of Science in Civil and Environmental Engineering, graduating in fall of 2015. Roxana has been involved with several organizations, including SWE, SHIP, and ASCE, mostly in college. She's working on taking the PE exam in transportation, and currently she works in land development. She's been working in this department for 6 years and was hired full-time at GCW in 2015. Today, we will hear about Roxana's experience as an engineer. So, without further ado, please welcome Roxana Lopez. And I will stop sharing. I'll give you scroll through real quick.
Awesome.
Cool. So you should be able to present now.
Okay. Hey, everybody. My name is Roxana. I've already been introduced, but I kind of wanted to. My first name is actually Luki, but I go by my middle name, Roxana. So that's a fun fact about me. Um, so a day in the life of an engineer. And before we actually got started, Alex and I spoke a little bit about, what as a student, you don't really know exactly unless you've been involved in the industry or you have family or connections in the industry. It's really hard for you to gauge what you're actually going to be doing once you get to, that final step. So that's kind of what I am really excited about. I'm a little bit nervous. So you can probably hear it in my voice. Hopefully, I loosen up as I go. But yeah, it was just as a student, it was really important for me to kind of gauge what it was that I was getting into and if it was going to be a good fit for me. So as a student, decided to get an internship to kind of get a taste, and I really highly recommend everybody does that. So the internship really allowed me to get a taste of what the future held, and I loved my internship. So I really recommend that for anybody who's any student really. It's really a good litmus test of whether you will like that particular industry. So I do have a presentation, a little bit of a PowerPoint. It doesn't have very many slides, but I just kind of wanted to give a visual. So let me go ahead and pull that up and go ahead and share that. So let me get this out the way here. All right. And let me see. There we go. So I work at GCW Engineering. That is actually where I also did my internship. I graduated in 2014, the fall. So I took about 5 years because I started my college career in 2009. So let me see, this is a little bit more about myself. So kind of like what I went over already. I'm also a first generation college graduate. So I definitely felt, I don't know if you guys follow psychology, but there's a term that's coming up a lot is imposter syndrome. So I definitely felt that going to school. I just felt like, I didn't quite fit in, but I definitely am happy that I stuck it out. I grew up in LA, and then I moved here when I was in middle school in about 2005. So I'm kind of dating myself there. Uh, this is one of my favorite questions. So I actually had a small Facebook post that I asked people what kind of questions they have for engineers or about this topic. And this was one of the questions and this is a question that I actually get quite often, is why or how did you decide to pursue civil engineering? So, um, hmm, this is the reason. So this is Gracie. I think I saw her in the audience. So shout out to Gracie. She's my best friend. I would definitely consider her that. She's been invaluable in my life and very important influence, definitely, towards pursuing civil engineering. There was a time where she told me, you're so good at math, you should definitely think about something that uses those skills that you have. So I started looking into it, and she mentioned Imagineering. I looked into it further, and I really liked the idea of bridges, and that's how I kind of went into civil engineering. The picture to the left, that was actually a design that Gracie did for our Society of Women Engineers. I believe it was on one of our shirts. So yeah, like I said, she's always been very supportive, and that's the kind of friendships that you need to kind of push you and like challenge you. So that's really important, having connections early on, and kind of valuing that. So I work at GCW. This is kind of a short video that kind of summarizes what we do as an industry. And this is for civil engineering. We are a civil engineering specific company, but we also have a surveying department. So I'm going to play the video, and I think it's only 2 minutes, so it shouldn't bore you too much.
Launched as a one-man operation in 1969, GC Wallace Inc. has developed into a leading provider of civil engineering and land surveying services, working with clients throughout the western United States, including Nevada, California, Colorado, and Arizona. We've been trusted by some of America's most prominent developers to prepare extensive design plans for a wide variety of complex private land development projects. Public municipalities have also relied on GCW to prepare complicated designs to address major infrastructure needs. GCW has achieved success by providing quality, comprehensive engineering services while respecting our clients' time and budget constraints. That, along with our ability to leverage emerging technologies and thoroughly understand our clients' businesses, enables us to face the difficult challenges of today's market, including complex and aging infrastructure, sustainability and smart growth, and program funding.
At GCW, our civil engineering services include flood control, water, wastewater, traffic and transportation, structural engineering disciplines, and our land development division focuses on master plan communities, residential subdivisions, and commercial, industrial, and retail projects. Additionally, GCW is committed to supporting all of its engineering design projects with the most current and modern land surveying and mapping capabilities. The Las Vegas Valley continues to undergo a metamorphosis after suffering its most challenging period of economic turmoil. And thankfully, industries throughout the community are recovering with a reinvigorated spirit. Likewise, GCW is equally revitalized and is embarking on a new path with the announcement that the firm will continue its legacy under a new identity, GCW Inc. In addition to this announcement, GCW is also launching a new corporate brand. The advent of our new name and look brings about a renewed passion for innovation, value, and quality, which, combined with our long-held tradition of excellence, will help our clients succeed. If you're looking for a team of experienced professionals, GCW is poised to offer you the resources and expertise necessary to help you achieve greatness.
Okay, so going back to the presentation, exit out of that. So yeah, that kind of gives you a brief summary of all the departments that we have. As it mentioned, we have land development, structural, transportation, water, wastewater, and even an in-house surveying. So it's really, and drainage. So it's really neat to have all of those departments in one single company, because we can kind of work together and without dealing with sub-consultants necessarily, but we sometimes have to do that as well. So I actually work in land development. Land development is kind of what they call the jack of all trades. So we do a little bit of everything. We play with dirt is our main thing. So we try to level the dirt and make it work with drainage, with the utilities, we design the traffic, the striping, the lighting. It's all really very it's very logistical. So if you zoom out a little bit from the different types of engineering, like transportation or water, those are very specific and kind of technical. Land development can be technical, but more on the software side. But land development, I think of it as more of an overarching, kind of like a zoomed out version of kind of what the rest of the engineers do in civil engineering specifically. So we do a little bit of everything. We are a consultant firm. So we consult with our clients. We have about a 50-50 split between our public and private sides. Our consultant portion of it, we consult with our clients both on not just two things, but quite like this list that I have here. We plan things, we analyze, we design, and we manage. So there's kind of a few, my manager, Yao, likes to call it hats. So there's different hats that you inhabit as an engineer. And specifically in land development, I am not yet a licensed engineer, just a quick disclaimer there. I kind of do all the duties of an engineer. So I do plan, I do analyze, I design, I manage. I do not have the stamp to make it official. So I can do all of those tasks and duties. However, I can't put my stamp on it quite yet. I am taking the exam in October, so I'm really, really excited to finally be able to stamp on my own designs. So the different hats that I was talking about, there are different sides to land development. It's not just on the design and planning and the management side, but there's also client relationships. So I work in land development, specifically the residential department, or the residential division of land development. I have done like a little bit of commercial buildings, but generally I do a lot of residential. So with that, we deal with the client. So our expectations are coming from the client and the agencies and definitely the company itself. We want to be profitable at the end of the day. The way we do that, we keep the client satisfied and we kind of achieve the result that they're expecting, which is kind of, I think, in our model for GCW. So the different hats include being also like your lawyer hat. Sometimes you have to think about not just the client, but also when you're proposing residential development, it can get political too, because like for example, there's golf courses that certain developers want to develop on, but there are already existing houses there that, kind of had the impression that the golf course was going to stay there. So it's kind of like there's a lot of different roles that you inhabit as a land development engineer. So this is a picture of one of the days that we went out to the field. You can see it's a mess in the back. There's all sorts of stuff going on here. There's dirt definitely everywhere. There's utilities. Like, I don't know if you can see it. Let me see if I can point. So these are pipes, drainage pipes. You don't really get a scale, but these are, I believe these are about 30-inch. So they're not that huge, but they're a lot bigger than what you see as lines on a piece of paper. So it's kind of nice to be able to connect what you design on paper and actually see the scale of things in real life. And you realize, oh man, I'm designing a 10-foot drop here. 10 feet is quite a bit. So, you have to think about all these things. And the field days help you kind of get a gauge of, how the contractors build things and how things are actually done in the real world. This is kind of an example of a kind of a typical day-to-day plan that you would be doing. So here, this is what we call a cut and fill or an earthwork. The colors kind of represent a gradient of the how much you would have to cut out of the earth or out of the soil in order to get the elevation that we're proposing. And you have to think about the drainage patterns. And there's like over here, you can see like a pipe. We have to have the contours, kind of analyze all of those elevations using CAD. So on a day-to-day basis, we use AutoCAD Civil 3D. We're currently on the 2018 version, but there is a 2020 version. We haven't yet upgraded, but I'm sure we will soon. And or we might get the next year's version. I'm not sure what the plan is. But we use CAD to generate all of our surfaces, our pipe networks, our corridors, and just kind of surface models of what the site is going to look like. So here are a little bit more kind of examples of what a typical plan would look like. And these are different plans. There's like a million different types of plans. Our MEET is improvement plans, where we propose basically the full set of improvements that need to be done in order for the homeowner or the future user of that said land, whatever use it might be, can be able to use that land how it was zoned. So providing water, providing sewer, providing drainage, proper drainage, lighting, proper lighting, fire hydrants in case there's a fire. There's a lot of different components that go into it. And when you're in school, or at least when I was in school, I thought that I was gonna get to design things from scratch. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of engineers that do. They design stuff, I mean, from the material all the way over to more complicated stuff. But that is usually the research type of and specifically for civil engineering. Civil engineering, you kind of use the codes and the design standards to kind of develop a design, and you kind of build off of the backs of giants, right? I don't know. It's never you just coming up with something randomly. There's a system in place, and you kind of play with the rules. So my apologies, I have to silence my phone here. Okay, so on the left, this is a project we did for one of our clients. They have, there's a map, there's north arrows to kind of indicate the direction, and that's always typical. On the right, we have also for the same project, kind of like crossing information. We have utilities. We have a kind of an exhibit, we call it, of kind of like the underground utility locations and what we need to do in order to get all the utilities into the residential lot. Let's see. Ooh. Okay, so this next picture is kind of the plan on top is a striping plan that I also did for the same project. I don't know how many civils we have, but when we're in school, we kind of calculate kind of transition lengths using, I think it's WS squared over 60 or WL squared over 60 to get the taper length. But so we also use a lot of those formulas. However, unlike school, you are not exactly being tested. You are being tested in the sense that the agencies have to approve of your design. However, you kind of are in charge of checking your own work, and you can use the calculator. You can have the software do it for you. So, it's important to pay attention in school in order for you to understand the concepts, but it's not, if you weren't completely, how do you say it? If you're very strong, like if you don't have a perfect 3.9, or I guess that's not perfect, but a 4.0 or a 3.5 or above, don't worry about it. I think I graduated with like a 3.1, I think 3.14 actually. And when I was in school, I thought that was horrible because I was a valedictorian in high school. But when I actually got out into the workforce, they did not care about your grades, as long as they cared about, to the sense that that's your foot in the door. But once you're in the door, it really matters more whether you're able to kind of understand. It's more logistical, more being orderly and organizational, and being able to receive direction, being able to apply. A lot of this stuff they teach you right on the job. So the 4 years are definitely, or 4 or 5, however many years it takes, are definitely a great experience, and they're definitely invaluable. But also don't worry about it if if you don't have a perfect grades. So on the bottom left corner over here, we have what it's a scale, and that we use to kind of as a ruler to kind of dimension things without having to basically use software. We can just take a scale and scale something. In our line of business also, you have to actually have nice penmanship, because there are times that we actually submit our plans on a hard copy to the city on what we call a Mylar sheet. And these Mylar sheets are kind of like plastic. And you can make modifications if you need to for what they call revisions. And you need to actually be able to have hand drafting skills. So that's another surprise to me, because I was never taught any hand drafting skills in college. But I learned on the job, and it was definitely a lot of fun. Lower right is just a picture, me, and these are two of my coworkers. And we just kind of, this is one thing that we also do, is we get together, we meet, and we kind of discuss solutions, we discuss designs. There's actually a lot that goes on in these meetings, and they tend to be productive more often than not, actually. So it's a meeting of the minds. These are two projects that we did for, I believe it was one of our clients I worked on both of these. These are both in Summerlin, I believe. So these projects are definitely our bread and butter. We do Summerlin projects a lot, and we actually did the master plan community for all of Summerlin, or for most of Summerlin, pardon me. There's other developers and not developers, or other engineers that had also worked on developing portions of Summerlin, but I believe we are the biggest. So on the right, I just wanted to show you kind of this is called riprap, and we kind of show this along the rear of the house. I believe there was a big mountain. It's right on the side of the mountain, so we had to catch all the flow with the riprap. And so that's kind of what that is. Let me go back. How do you go back? There we go. So yeah, so that's some riprap. You can see that we actually specify the rock size. We work in unison with the soils reports, the geotechnicals. We actually don't have a geotechnical in-house, but that's something that we do. That's a consultant that we do have to work with, that's outside of our office. There's a lot of other disciplines that we do work with, most mainly with the architects. And there's kind of a love-hate relationship there. So a lot of the architects sometimes tend to have some ideas, and sometimes we have to kind of work with those ideas, and that's mostly like a commercial thing. Residential is kind of easier to deal with architects because a lot of the specifications are kind of set, and it's very much standardized. So I just kind of want to go over, I did say it was a day in the life. I've kind of been going over a lot of work, and I do a lot of work. But there's a lot of different other sides. So besides doing that, we hang out a lot, you know, in the office. We go to lunch together. We're a tight-knit group. We like going to like Zen Curry. Unfortunately now, because of COVID, we haven't been able to do that. But you know, we're excited for the time when it comes back. We have a lot of fun. We had a soccer team that was both female and male. So it was very nice, and we actually competed. I don't remember if we won or we got second place, but it was a lot of fun, even though half our squad got injured. So yeah, I mean, on a day-to-day basis, I would say it's 100% what's the word? Fulfilling. It's fulfilling as a career because of the amount of just the amount of roles that you have to inhabit. And I'm not saying it's for everybody. I think everybody has a different experience with engineering. But I think for me, it's been really fun. It's been engaging. I've grown so much. And yeah, it's just been like a really great time. So I mean, and I don't want to paint just like that kind of picture. There's definitely days where it's very stressful. So there's days when, you know, my boss will come down and he's like, hey, how come this isn't done? Or even worse, he's like, print this out, come to my office. And that's, you know, sometimes that's, depending on how they say it, you know, that's not a good thing, because if they want you to print something out and come to their office, it's probably something you messed up. And some of these boo-boos can be quite big, to be honest. They, you know, I don't want to say any numbers, but they can be quite expensive. And when you make mistakes, actually, we as a company, because if it was our mistake, we have to pay. So, you know, fortunately, it's not something that's super commonplace, but it's, you know, it's something that happens, especially as a younger person. You are just starting out. You don't know exactly how to design everything. And really, it's important to be able to know. I keep looking down at myself. I'm sorry. So it's important to be able to know kind of where to ask for help. So one of the things that I was told when I first started is ask for help. Always ask a million questions, because, you know, if you don't know the answer, most likely there is someone that in this company, there's I think one time they quantified it. It's like over a few hundred years of experience just between some of the senior managers. And yeah, it's really incredible. You can walk to any side of the company, and, you know, somebody will have an answer for you. And if there is no answer, someone can point you in the right direction. So it's really like the power of the team at play. So what else did I want to go over? So another thing I just wanted to go over was just kind of like from when I wake up to kind of when I go to sleep, what that looks like for me right now. And obviously it evolves from when I started. It was a lot more duties that were a lot more repetitive, duties that required less design thinking, duties that were quicker, you know, and small kind of pieces of what I would eventually be doing. So I started off with what you call a plot plan, which is what you place your building inside of your site. Excuse me. And then you kind of set it according to standards. So there's definitely city standards, there's county standards, and there's all sorts of standards that you have to follow. So that's an important part of the job. We follow standards from, like I said, the not just the agencies, but we also have the districts like the water district, the sewer reclamation district. We have Southwest Gas, NV Energy. Even though they don't usually review their plans, our plans, they do their own designs, and we do have to understand how they work in unison with our own. So let's see. So now when I first kind of start my day, at least I wake up, I do my morning meditations, and that's just me. But after that, I like to exercise. I had gotten into the habit for a little bit of riding my bike to work. But that's usually something that you can't do in the summer. It's way too hot. But I sometimes do it in the winter, and it's definitely exhausting, but it's very fun. So once I get to work, the first thing we do in land development, or we used to do, was have a morning meeting. Now we work and then we have the meeting at 10 a.m. So this 10 a.m. morning meeting, we just kind of go over our tasks. We go over what our goals are for that day and what we plan to achieve, and if there are any obstacles in our way in order to that prevents us from basically achieving these goals. So we kind of hash all of that out in the morning at 10 a.m. And then after that, so previous to the 10 a.m. meeting, though, I kind of use that time to kind of set up for that morning meeting. So right now, because I have about 6 years of experience now, I'm now kind of transitioning into more of a managerial role. So even though I'm not exactly a manager yet, I still have a lot of the same duties, responsibilities, and tasks assigned that maybe not a manager, but like a project engineer, which is a step up from a designer, which is kind of what I am. I'm an engineering intern in land development. Engineering intern is my technical title, but that like I said, it inhabits a million different roles within that, especially with how my manager tends to work with me. He really has allowed me to kind of grow and pushed me to become a better version of not just an engineer and a worker, but as a person. I can honestly say that he has taught me a lot about life, and I appreciate a lot of the stuff that he has kind of tried to instill in me, a lot of the values and kind of what we aim for in terms of being responsive to the client and being what they expect. So let's see. So after that, I actually have some pictures here, and I forgot to turn the sheet. I have everybody stuck on this. So here, this is kind of what I was talking about more personally. So this is my husband and I. We like to cycle. We do rock climbing. Over on the upper left, this is a training that I went to at the city of Henderson. You can see it. I don't know if you can see the logo in the back there, but there it is. It's a selfie I took for the gram. And then, over on the lower left, that's a picture I took when in the morning, sometimes instead of doing some meditations or something like that, I'll just take a morning run. So it kind of depends on the day, or instead of riding my bike, I like to get my run in. So once I get to work, like I said, I set up for the morning meeting. I go over kind of the tasks that I have with all of the employees that we have, all my coworkers. My coworkers, a lot of them have gotten to the point now where they kind of do report to me a little bit. Not completely, but they still have to go through my boss, but I'm kind of if my boss isn't there, they'll come to me. So I'm kind of in that role right now. And it's been a lot of fun. Like, I get to train people. I even interview people. So that's been, there's definitely a lot of hats that, like my boss likes to say, that you have to wear. After our morning meeting, then I kind of set everybody, make sure that everybody is clear on the task and that there are no more questions, and we move forward with our tasks. So I like to do a lot of the easy tasks first because you develop momentum. So you get all the easy tasks done first. So like stuff like exporting files, sending out emails, responding to emails, just stuff like that, like easy stuff. You get it out the way first. And then once you kind of feel confident, you've gotten all the low-hanging fruit, then you start going for the big guys. So the big sharks. So you start going after them. And by that, I mean kind of like design tasks are usually require a lot of mental energy and require you to be focused in and zoomed into what you're doing. So with that's kind of like an afternoon task. So I kind of leave design tasks usually for the afternoon when I've had a lot of my setup. If I can get started in the morning, I'll get started in the morning. And that's what I'll do. But typically for me, I've noticed that it's better if I check stuff, if I do all the easy stuff in the morning and then, the harder stuff in the afternoon. So once I get done with my morning, we reach noon. It's time for lunch. I may or may not take lunch. I admit that I'm not proud of that, but I'm not huge, I don't have a huge appetite. So sometimes, just having breakfast will get me through the day. So I definitely don't recommend that. I definitely feel that when I do have lunch, it is definitely better. Just don't overeat because then you fall into a food coma and you don't want to do anything in the afternoon. So that's definitely a warning for when you do get into the workforce. And definitely an office job is sometimes you do get sleepy, especially if you're working on something very tedious. Like in the beginning, you do a lot of tedious tasks. So sometimes you start, and I actually have some, no, never mind. I'm not going to say that. So there's also, so with that, after we get done with our lunch, if we have lunch or I have lunch, however have you, sometimes we go out for lunch. Right now we're not, but when we do, it's fun. And, we get to chit chat and talk about what's going on in the company, who's getting hired, who's getting fired. I didn't mean to rhyme. And yeah, so it's definitely, it's fun. And then after we come back from lunch, usually like I said, I'll start on my heavy design tasks. As we get further and further towards the day, people start winding down, people start getting up from their desks and just chit-chatting. But I mean, it's not a lot of time. We do walk around and, say a quick joke here or there, or, it's a very down-to-earth environment. It's kind of, I don't know if you guys have watched The Office. It's not like that, but there's that relationship there. There's a lot of poking fun. There's practical jokes. We do games at the company. So we just, like, for example, we did a battleship tournament, and that was like a socially distant thing that we could do online. And we're actually going to we're actually like doing a tournament and everything. So it just keeps us in contact with each other and having fun and being tight knit and being a part, feeling like we're part of a team. That's important. So sometimes I've noticed that the people that don't necessarily, fit within the group, or whatever situation there is, it's usually because they don't feel like they are, like there's value being added, or like their contributions might be not being completely, what do you call it, like their contributions aren't completely being recognized. So I think that's when there's an issue. But generally at GCW, it's been so great. Like, I think that everybody kind of feels like a team member, everybody who's there. And it's just been a good time. I definitely recommend engineering to everybody. I'm actually trying to get my sister into the industry as well. So I definitely recommend sticking it if you are within civil engineering. And this is my experience as a land development engineer, but I'm sure it kind of varies. That's what a typical day looks like. But sometimes there's meetings. So sometimes I may go to like a client meeting, say like every Tuesday at 10 a.m. I believe we have like a meeting with one of our major clients. And when I do attend those meetings, the clients just kind of go over projects, we go over statuses, we go over expectations, and just any new information that may come up. The clients are generally, they're sweethearts, honestly. They are all, a lot of them are engineers, so a lot of them understand what we kind of go through on the consultant side, and they're kind of understanding of that. And especially when you build good relationships, it just makes the connection better, and it builds on the relationship. So once you have that trust, it comes with a lot of, if you make a small mistake, they might not ding you as hard as if you kind of had a rocky relationship, or you're not very responsive, or certain things. So keeping client relationships is very important, and it's like a foundation of what we do. So engineering is not just the planning, the technical, the design. A lot of it is actually just being a good, for lack of a better term, just a good worker, a good human. You're willing to work hard, you're willing to learn, you're willing to kind of embrace change, because stuff changes. COVID is a case in point. We actually, from mid-March, when everything shut down, to about, I think it was maybe, let's see, I think it was just maybe August. Yeah, from like mid-March to like beginning of August or so, or end of July. No, yeah, like beginning of August or mid-August. I worked from home exclusively, almost, and I came in just to make like hand changes and stuff that I needed to be physically in the office for. So we had to adjust, like we had to adjust, and luckily GCW was great. We transitioned, we kind of saw it coming. We saw that this is an issue and we might get shut down. So we jumped on, our IT jumped on it. And they developed like this remote desktop applications that they rolled out to all the employees. At first it was a few test subjects, and then the rest of everybody got it. And so now, right now, we have about, I think it's 60% of our employees are working from home, and the rest are in the office, but we're kind of spread about. So, and we all have to wear masks. So, we try to keep it safe. There's hand sanitizer everywhere. And like I said, it might be actually less than 40%. I'm not exactly sure on the numbers, but it's definitely not at full capacity right now. So, it's important in the workforce, once you actually reach it, to be able to be adaptable, to be able to change, to be able to kind of just roll with the punches. And sometimes, even during the recession, I heard that some engineers had to take, had to take pay cuts. And, it's just unfortunate, but, and hopefully, knock on wood, that doesn't happen again. But, it's kind of a thing that you have to adjust, especially in land development. Our kind of industry is kind of based off of home sales. So if they don't do very well, then, we're not doing very well. So it's kind of a scary thought, but, it's kind of exciting in my opinion. So I I have a few other things that I'd like to say, but I think what I'm gonna do is I have a few questions that I actually got from. Oh, I don't want to share that. Anyway. Oh, I should have written those down. So that's my presentation. So, let's see. How am I gonna do this? I think I'm just gonna try to remember some of the questions. So some of the questions that I got when I posted on Facebook, maybe I can just pull them up here, were I think I've already I kind of tried to work them into my presentation, but some other questions is what has that other people have asked me is what has been my experience as a woman engineer specifically. So I kind of wanted to touch upon that a little bit. So I actually feel really, what do you call it? Appreciate it. I do. I do think that, you know, it's definitely representation for women is not what it should be right now. So there in my office, there's maybe, and it's starting to get better though. I do see more and more females and women starting to be interested in engineering. And I think that's really great. I think it's a good sign. It's encouraging and it's a sign. I think that a lot of the outreach programs are working and a lot of the marketing and branding that we're trying to make in order to kind of expose more women to engineering are working. So like I said, I was lucky enough to have a friend that kind of, you know, thought outside the box, and she mentioned the Imagineering, and I was like hooked. I was like, "Oh, Imagineering, that sounds amazing." So you know, I went for it. But you know, my experience has been great. Honestly, I can't complain. There are times that you know, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, but you know, some of the guys do sometimes get a little bit defensive. And I don't think that's necessarily because you're a female, but sometimes it's also not just that, but sometimes it's because you're coming from a younger position and people don't, you know, it's hard for them to admit when you might, you know, have a solution where that they might not have thought of. And there's some ego, a level of ego involved, but I think that's everybody. And I don't think, well, I just, the whole, I feel like I'm not trying to minimize it. I just don't feel like, within engineering, I read an article that said that the pay gap is actually about 95, we get paid about 95 cents to the dollar. So the pay gap is a lot narrower when you join a STEM field. So I think that's encouraging. I don't know the figures for my coworkers. We're not, you know, we don't have all of that's private information, but I would surmise that I get paid about the same, I would say, as I hope I get paid about the same as my coworkers. But yeah, I mean, I think my manager really always tries to take care of me, and I feel definitely very valued. I feel respected. There are jokes that happen that are, you know, they can be sexist or I try to brush all of that stuff kind of off. I don't try to focus on that or you know, just put too much emphasis on negativity in general. So in my life, personally, it hasn't been too much of an issue. I've always been kind of a little bit eccentric, so I feel like I fit in with the engineers. So maybe that's helped my case, but you know, I do see that, you know, there are other times where it's tougher on other women. And the retention rate actually for engineering, for women engineering, is actually pretty low. So that's actually not a good thing. So even though we may be getting more women, sometimes we can't hold on to them in engineering. And I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if it's because of the pressure or if because it's the expectation didn't line up with what, with what reality would actually was. And I think that's more of it. I think a lot of us as engineers in general or student engineers, we are expecting kind of to well, at least I was expecting to graduate and just come up with like designs, right? Like just like from my brain, from my imagination, no limitations. But that's kind of not realistic and kind of not what engineering was in practicality, at least for land development. I do know that I have helped out with like transportation with some of their utility design and also the water group, the water wastewater group. And I definitely learned a lot just with one project, how they set things up and how they think of things a little bit differently, a little bit more technical, fine tuned. They do a lot more specifications, and calculations. Whereas in land development, we think of order, organization, uh, aesthetics. It's a little bit more, I don't want to call it artsy, but maybe it is a little bit more artsy. It's kind of like a combination of kind of trying to get the earth to do, and trying to mold it to the land, to what you need it to be in order to basically have a working site. So I think I was slotted for 2 hours, but I think that was almost the extent of my material that I have. I do have a couple more questions. However, I would like to open it up and see. I don't know if that's okay, Alex.
Yeah, that's fine. Usually at the end we have like a kind of Q&A session. So yeah, we can open it up now.
Okay, yeah, because I just want to see if anybody has any questions, and if there's not, I can just go off of the questions that I had already. So is there anything anybody kind of is interested in or wants to know more about? Oh, that's a good question. So I saw, oh, let me see. Is there a way that I can, let me see. Oh, there it is, the chat.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. You have to like go to the top and then like bring it down. I can read these off to you too if you'd like.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right. So Allison says, what advice do you have for us on our first internship? Are employer expectations really high, or do we have a little leeway to make mistakes?
Okay, so I love this question. I think it was really, really, really dependent on the employer and the manager. So different companies have different work cultures. So let me just go back into this. I'm sorry. So different companies, like I was saying, have like different work cultures. So it really can like the expectation can be really high. I don't want to say any names, but there are certain companies that are kind of known to be a little bit cutthroat and essentially won't even hire you if you don't have a little bit of experience. And that's kind of a catch-22 because you need experience in order to get, I mean, you're trying to get experience, but they're requiring experience. So it's kind of, you kind of stuck there. So basically, in my case, but not all companies are like that. If you usually the smaller firms tend to be a little bit more understanding. They tend to be a little bit more lenient. And then even within a company, so the company might have a work culture that's very aggressive, but the specific manager may be really chill or cool. So really, I read a quote one time that it was like, it's more about you choose your manager rather than the company. So I kind of agree with that. It's definitely a lot about how the manager treats you, and kind of like the work that they're willing to put in, and kind of like whether your personalities mesh and stuff like that.
Awesome. So next question you have, in your introduction, it was mentioned how you're part of SHIP. How is SHIP? Am I saying that right, by the way?
You
I'm not
are.
part of. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
How has SHIP helped you be where you are today?
Oh man, these are great questions. So SHIP was actually really great, because what SHIP allowed me to do was network a lot. So even though I am, at the time I didn't have the documentation to be able to work because I wasn't born in this country, and I was still kind of working out my status and everything. But at the time when I joined SHIP, I kind of just used it to get those connections. So I went to all the conferences, or not all the conferences, but most of the conferences while I was officer. And just like using that, I attended the workshops, and in those workshops, there were uh, a lot of informative and just like educational, kind of like this. It was like people from the industry kind of getting together and giving you tips like, hey, this is what you should look out for. So kind of joining those kinds of things kind of allowed me to kind of get a better grasp on myself, and just kind of make me more confident. I think confidence is a really important thing that SHIP allowed for me to develop, is because I held positions and I was able to kind of run certain things, and be exposed, and just plan a lot of these things. It was just a lot of fun, and it prepared me for just the future.
All right. So next question from Emma. What are the best ways to get internships in your experience?
Ooh, good one. So I think the best way that worked for me is I got a LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, I always tell everybody, get a LinkedIn if you're a student or if you're a professional trying to get in the industry. You have recruiters on there looking for candidates. So like, and then if you make your profile attractive enough, you literally have recruiters reaching out to you, asking you, hey, you want to come over here? Or hey, you want to come over here? And it's like they're basically doing your job for you, and you just have to choose the right suitor. So I tell everybody, please join LinkedIn, and don't be afraid to reach out and just email everybody, just InMail. Just go ahead and just add connections, mail people, send messages. I don't know why I keep saying mail people, message people. And just do that. I think that's how I got my position. Actually, I'm pretty sure, because I remember very clearly. I had an interview with through ASCE, actually, with the mock speed interviews. So I actually got an actual interview off of the mock speed interviews with GCW, and I just kept messaging the CEO currently. He wasn't the CEO at the time, but at the time he was definitely a executive. So I messaged him on LinkedIn, and that's kind of like we scheduled an interview, and that's how I got my job. So I recommend LinkedIn 100%.
Cool. So Alexis is asking, do you have any advice on dealing with imposter syndrome?
Yeah, well, I think the thing with that is you have to remind yourself that a lot of people are probably feeling what you're feeling, and that it's okay. It's okay. Don't give up. Just kind of breathe. And I saw this really good image, actually. I wonder if I can share it. Let me see if I can find it. Well, I'll just describe it. But it's basically like a curve, and it goes up and down, right? So like at first you're doing great, you're going up, you're learning new skills, and then you reach a plateau, and then you get challenged because you've kind of mastered your skills, so you start feeling like you're doing terrible again, so you start going down again. and you start feeling bad about yourself. You start doubting, hey, can I really do this? And you have to remind yourself, like, man, I got through that degree. I got through this, I got through that. And it's like, really remind yourself of your end goal. Remind yourself. I actually had a few years where I really didn't think that I was able to get to the point that I am now. Like, I felt like I wasn't smart enough, or that I would never be as capable as some of these guys over here that can just pump out the numbers. They know all the codes. They just know everything. And I just felt so overwhelmed. So I think the important thing is just to keep going. Just keep going, take another step, just go to sleep, take a nap, just do some self-care, and just keep going. Because I think if you really are interested in engineering and you really like it, it's definitely worth it once you kind of reach that level where you're confident in your skills and you're confident in who you are. And just keep going. That's my, and there is a point though where you might question whether it's a fit at all. And I think you'll know in your heart whether it is a fit or not, whether you're just struggling or whether it's actually something deeper, whether it's not a fit. So I think it's like a lot of self reflection, and you always have to ask yourself these things and reflect back, like, do I actually enjoy this, or is this what, like, people are expecting of me? And you don't necessarily have to enjoy every single aspect of what you do, but I think it's a good thing to be able to enjoy what you do, and to definitely find a better fit if what you're doing doesn't work out for you. So just keep going, and yeah, and I think that's the main thing. Is eventually you'll find that confidence.
Awesome. So Serena is asking, do you wish you started your internship sooner, or do you think the timing was just right?
Ooh, I do wish I had started sooner. I actually, during the time, it was, what is it, 2015? So I was able to work in 2014. Prior to that, I wasn't able to work, so I didn't really have a choice. But I did look for an internship for over a year, or not over a year. I think it was around a year. And I eventually found a job, but I experienced a lot of rejection. So I definitely did wish that I had started a year earlier, but it's just, as long as you get your foot in the door, that to me, it's 5 years, 6 years, 10 years down the line, it won't matter 1 year ahead or behind, or it's kind of what you put into it. But I definitely recommend as soon as you can to get one, because it just gives you real world experience.
All right. And Jasmine is asking, how would you suggest first-time interns advocate for ourselves as far as negotiating salary? Some companies ask what pay we would expect rather than giving us a number.
Oh, I remember this question. Can I ask for one little thing? I do need to take a small little bathroom break. So can you give me like a few minutes and then I'll be back?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sorry about that. I know that's really weird, but I have to go.
No worries.
Okay, everybody. So the last question I believe was on salary negotiation, correct?
Yes, it was.
Okay. So for that, I actually have a little bit of a funny story. So when I found out how much Southwest Gas interns made, which was like 20 plus an hour, I actually asked for that much. And I was swiftly told no. So I actually did not have any idea how to negotiate at the time. So I kind of just, I just wanted to get my foot in the door. So I didn't really want to negotiate. So I think as an intern, you have to look at the job market would be my suggestion, is look at how many internships there are available and whether you're whether it's what they call an employee market or if it's employer market. So if you are in an employee market and there's a lot of positions available, then I do think there is room to negotiate, and kind of like maybe get different offers, and that's kind of the way to negotiate in that I would suggest. So get different offers and basically put that offer against whatever offer you have from the company that you're trying to go to, and they may not take it, but it's a negotiation, and they may bite, they may give you a few extra dollars or what have you. But if it's not an employee market though, you might just want to get your foot in the door, and just because once you actually get in there, you can prove yourself, and it doesn't really, to me, in my opinion, it doesn't matter what you start out with. It kind of matters what where you go, and what you're aiming for, and what kind of in engineering. I think it's, or at least in GCW, it's pretty common to get bonuses and salary raises, or not, or just raises, I mean, because we're not salaried unless you're a manager or above. But our hourly to be raised like sometimes twice a year, sometimes once a year, and then bonuses sometimes twice a year, sometimes once a year. So when the times are good, they're good. So you can catch up pretty quickly. So it's not, to me, negotiate only when you're in a position to negotiate. But sometimes when you're not, it kind of comes across as like you're a little bit demanding, honestly. So but that's not to say, if you have experience and you have software experience and you can bring stuff to the table, you're not just completely new, then definitely you can start a conversation around that. But in my opinion, it's more important to just get in, and then once you're in, prove yourself, and then get to that level.
All right. So Allison has another question. Were there classes in your university experience that you felt were more applicable to the practical aspects of your job?
Oh yeah. So CAD class, I am guilty, very, very, very guilty of slacking off in CAD class. But CAD is literally every day. We use it every single day. Like unless you're out in the field all day, you're gonna use CAD. You're gonna open it up and you're gonna use it. So we use AutoCAD, drafting, some that's in land development. Other like the transportation uses inroads, and I think they have other software. Water uses like the Bentley products, the WaterCAD. They use GIS. We use GIS too, actually, but not as often as water and wastewater and transportation. We use Google Earth. So kind of software, honestly, the software classes, the GIS classes, the CAD classes. I don't think UNLV offers any land development courses, but out of all the technical disciplines, the one that I use the most is transportation. But if you want to go into a technical field, then obviously whatever technical field that you want to go into those classes would be more applicable to you. I am a land development, and I probably said that a million times already, so I'm probably going to stop saying that now. But in land development, it's like it's less about the specific disciplines and more overall. So I don't know if that answered it. Oh, another class. I'm sorry, before I move on. Engineering economics. That one's important because cost analysis is huge. I haven't gotten too much into cost analysis, but yeah, econ, software programs, probably your most applicable, and learning Excel tricks. Believe it or not, we use Excel a lot. Excel.
All right, so I think that's it for questions. I wanted to, you said something earlier. These meetings are take 2 hours long, mainly just in case it goes over an hour, but we don't have to go the full hour or full
Okay.
2 hours. I just kind of set it up that way.
Okay.
But yeah, it looks like there's no more questions. Did you want to I think you were talking about some questions you normally get from earlier. Okay.
I do have some questions that I got from the Facebook post that I made, just asking for people's questions in preparation for this meeting. So let me pull those up, and I can just kind of answer some of the questions that I had from there, and then I guess we could call it a day after that. If everybody is good with that. So let me see. So one of the questions that I got, I think this is a good question, is what advice would I give to other women interested in becoming engineers? So the advice, and I kind of touched upon this, but I think the advice, the most important thing is to be willing to learn, and also not to have thin skin. So don't take things personally. A lot of the things that happen around you, and this is just for life in general, it has more to do with that person, and what they're going through, rather than a reflection on you. Obviously, if you're getting feedback though on your on your performance, you have to listen to all that and not just be like, oh well, I'm good. But it is important to be able to just know yourself, know like where you need to take a break, and stand up for yourself if you know you're right. I think a lot of women also, and not just women, also men, it's when you're around a more assertive personality, you tend to get a little bit shyer. So I think it's important you don't have to be cutthroat and all of this and all of that to be successful, but I do think it is important to hold your ground when you know you're right. A lot of the times, people let their egos get in the way. And this is, you're working on problems that potentially can have an effect on the health, safety, and livelihood of people. So it's important that you speak up when you see there's an issue, if something's not going to work, if the company might possibly get charged. And this kind of goes into ethics a little bit. But yeah, it's important to speak up regardless of how you feel, kind of, but just because something is right, speaking up on. So I think, and that's just not just for problems, but for yourself, and advocating for yourself and being your biggest cheerleader. I was waiting for questions. I'm sorry. So there's some more questions over here. So what are my hours? So we do have flexible scheduling at GCW, but I just work a very regular schedule. So I work from 8 to 5. I take a lunch from 12 to 1. And then I go home. I usually, there are certain weeks where I will work 10 extra hours, 5 extra hours a week. So do my 45 or 50 hours a week. But that's not, I definitely value a work-life balance, and I think that's one of the other questions, actually. But I definitely value my work-life balance. So nobody can really force you to work overtime if you are not interested in working that overtime. But, you definitely have to kind of make sacrifices sometimes, because sometimes the team really needs, for you to stay a few extra hours to get that project along. So, you kind of have to be a team player. And yeah, so that's kind of the hours that how there's also, you can do 10 4s, or you can do a half Friday, so 9 4s and a half day on Friday. So some people do that. And yeah, so that's what the hours are like. I did see a question come in. I wonder.
Yeah, you do have another question. It's from Allison. So have you seen a shift on the land development side towards more sustainable living communities, or is the field pretty set in its ways and opposed to new technologies?
Ooh, I love this question. Yeah, I definitely do see that there are. I think it's more on the architecture side, not so much on the land development necessarily, but I do see that the architects are starting to use more sustainable materials, for example, in their specifications. The way that we think about sustainability and land development is a little bit more like just thinking about the homeowner and their access to certain parks, their access to just like a green space, right? So I think that that's starting, like open space requirements. The agencies now require certain open space in order to have, for the way that that works into sustainability is that it's just more appealing for the person, to a homeowner, to be in somewhere that has more open space. Is actually proven psychologically that it has stress reducing benefits. So that, and then just like the orientation of the houses, you have to line it up a certain way. But honestly, in land development itself, the only way that we can kind of reduce our impact, it's a very intensive, when you're developing land, it's definitely very intensive, and, uses, on the carbon footprint and all that. So I think the way that you try to minimize that in land development is trying to minimize rework. So trying to, if the truck has to haul all that dirt, try to make it so that it only has to do it once. You don't, everything is good the first time around. The design is checked and everything works out. And just trying to minimize costs based in essence. But I don't really, sustainability and how it ties into land development is kind of an interesting topic, but I see that playing out more on the planning side, which is from the agencies rather than from the developers, because the developers will always try to maximize profit, and it's the agencies that have to enforce certain standards. So some other questions. Let's see. So the importance, someone mentioned that the importance, how important is it to have a network, having mentors? So I would say very important to develop these relationships. And a lot of, sometimes you have your direct manager, but you may need to speak to somebody else regarding certain things that you may be going through in the company that you don't necessarily want to talk to your manager about. So it's good and important. And sometimes your manager may be your mentor, and sometimes you may have multiple mentors. So I think it's important to seek them out and not to shun them when they're presented to you, because those mentorships can really help grow your career and really help kind of elevate you to a different, to a different position, and just like a different level. So another question is, what's my work-life balance like? How do I maintain good mental health while continuing to advance in my field? So like I said, I'm not one big on overtime. There's some people that don't mind working a lot of overtime, but I value my time a lot. So I like to rest up I like to go home, doing my maybe 40, 45 hours. I mean, not maybe 40, I definitely do my 40, but like, for maybe 45 hours, I'll do like an extra hour a day. But, I tend not to do more than that unless absolutely needed. So I kind of place a limit on how much overtime I'm willing to work. And that's malleable. It can vary depending on what's needed at the time, and you have to be like that. It's like you have to be able to adapt to different situations. So yeah, so I think that is I'm sorry, I got distracted. Um so my work-life balance is, I try to keep it in check by being able to kind of set a limit on how much time I work. And then on my off time, I like to do things that are fun. So I like to climb, I like to rock climb. I started that like 2, 3 years ago, and it's just been so fun doing it. It's like a new skill set that you get to learn and know more about. I like to cycle. I'm not my cardio is not very good, so I'm not the fastest, but it's definitely stress relieving and it's fun. So I like to do that. And, I also like to write to just vent some of my frustrations. I like to write poetry. Um, there's a lot of stuff that I do on my off time that kind of allows me to recharge. I'm guilty of doing retail therapy when I've had a bad day. So, engineers, I think I would say make a pretty decent income. Civils probably out of all the engineers are the lowly guy on the totem pole. We probably get paid the least out of all the engineers, but it's still a decent living and it's still really good. I think um, I don't know what the numbers are like now, but at the time when I think that was another question. When I first started, it was about 50K that you start out with. And then you kind of get raises and stuff like that. But some of the electricals and mechanicals, I was seeing that their starting salaries were about 70, 80. So it kind of depends on your field, but I don't like to compare and talk about, or I guess I do compare, but I don't like to focus on that, I guess. That was a question that came up, is the salary. Um, and that's one thing I did notice. I think computer science is also pretty highly paid straight out of school. Sometimes you don't even have to have a degree to be paid really well as a computer scientist if you have all the coding skills. Um, salary is one of those things that you, as an engineer, you do make a decent living, and it is fun, and you have a fat 401k, so that is really nice. And you're able to just, I come from a family of limited means, so I was very fortunate to be able to have a lot of scholarships to make it through college, and be able to have this opportunity now and be able to make this kind of living that I do now. And it's just, I definitely am very thankful and grateful for this opportunity. I don't want to say any exact numbers, but you get raises like 10, sometimes 12% a year if you're good. So, your salary, you may start low, but it grows pretty quickly. And it's not low, and it's just comparatively. I wouldn't say it's low, but because I grew up kind of like I said, but it's good. It's a good living. I think it's decent, and it's one of the best bang for your buck degrees in my opinion.
All right, so Allison has one more question for you. She's asking, how do we maintain a LinkedIn network? I feel I feel silly reaching out every few months for a job slash internship, almost as though it comes across as not a genuine interest in the person outside of their employment connections.
I would say to follow up, or to maybe try to do. No, that's a good question. I would say just following up with the person. So I think that's showing persistence, because I didn't get my internship necessarily the first time when I asked on LinkedIn either. I kind of had to follow up a few times, or I think maybe just once or twice to get a response, because the guy at the time that I had reached out to, the president now, he was on a vacation, I believe, so he didn't reach out to me until he got back. So I think maybe just reaching out, maybe doing a call. Sometimes calls up can be a little bit more personal rather than a message, and you kind of get your personality across a little bit more. So maybe that I haven't, yeah, that's the only thing I can really think of. Sometimes you just got to be patient and wait it out until you finally reach a good opportunity. Keep your eyes out open for interviews. LinkedIn is definitely what I recommend. However, if you can't if you can't get anything through LinkedIn and you've been trying, I would say definitely branch out and try to find career fairs, mock speed interviews. Just kind of keep in the industry, like search it, maybe add a Google alert on your phone. Yeah, no problem. Let's see. Yeah. So I think to make it appealing, I actually read an article on this. To make your profile appealing, number one thing, believe it or not, is your picture. So a nice professional picture will pull in the most, and it'll pull in the most people, because people like to put a face to the name. And if you don't have a picture, sometimes people won't even talk to you. So put up a picture and definitely try to fill in all of your profile. Even if you don't have a lot of experience, fill it in as completely as possible. So I think that those are the main two things: is a good picture and then filling it in completely. If you have any scholarships you've gotten, any awards, any even employee of the month, that type of stuff in other jobs that you may have had. Putting that stuff up there kind of is like, oh man, this person is anything that would be like, oh, that person has has work ethic, or that person, even though they don't have any experience, they are showing the skills needed. So filling it in completely, using keywords, key phrases. So maybe Googling on the internet what kind of keywords that the recruiters are using. So like technician, drafter, CAD software, or whatever. Googling all of the terms that they use, the keywords that they use on the what do you call it, on the job searches. You can do that and then kind of try to use those keywords in your profile. And then let's see if I have any other questions now. Oh, okay. So this is a good one. What can you do to prepare for the transition from classes to a 9-to-5 job? So specifically in engineering. So that's a good one. I think to prepare for it, I think an internship is definitely a key part of. It's like it kind of makes the ride a little bit smoother. It's like it just kind of flows into it. So if you get an internship, you kind of get adjusted slowly to the new work environment. But if you don't have an internship, I think my advice would be to take it easy on yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. I definitely, after a hard day's worth of work, even if it's not physical labor, I feel very tired. So like when I first started, I would take a lot of naps after work. So so I think preparing for the transition is also just meeting expectation and reality, is that you're not going to have all of the energy in the world once you get home. You might not, depending on what your routine is. So just kind of leveling expectations of what the 9-to-5 is going to entail will help your transition for sure. Let's see. So, okay, so I got some questions about what is the best way to prepare for an engineering interview. So, I think the best way to prepare for an interview is just kind of to do if you have like a friend or a sister or someone, just to do a mock interview with that person, and then to be able to go one-on-one with them and have them kind of ask you the types of questions that you would be expecting from an interviewer. I think that will definitely help loosen you up a little bit and make you a little bit more direct and presentable when it comes down to it. And it'll just make you impressive. I think joining all of the organizations, and kind of taking advantage of all the opportunities out in college, will really help build you and build your self-esteem. So I think the best way to prepare for an interview is to kind of have your confidence, raise your confidence, practice by practicing, by joining organizations, by putting yourself out there and building confidence in yourself. So let's see. Okay, so this is another good question. What keeps you motivated day in and day out, especially on days when work is a struggle? So I think that's a great question. I think not every day is amazing. So there are some days, and honestly, for me, there were like maybe a few years where 2 years, honestly, that I didn't feel like I was really achieving my goals, that I was producing good work, that I was really at the top of my game. I didn't feel like I was, and I didn't feel like I could be even worse. So I think what got me through that was just perseverance and just basically having faith that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that all the work that you did and all of the hard work that you put in is going to be worth it eventually. So I think, that was really important for me to just keep going, like I said, and just keep swimming, like Dory says. Yeah, so that was an important thing for me. Is there are some days where you don't feel like working, where you dread going into the office. Where one time I even had a panic attack going into the office because I was so scared about about something that I had done, or I don't know what the situation was anymore, because now it doesn't really matter. But at the time I felt like my whole world was going to end. But it's something that everybody has tough days, and you just have to remember that you have to weather the storm if you're interested in keeping going with that. So yeah, so I think that's probably the last question that I had from my interview, or not my interview, from my questions that I posted on Facebook for responses from people. So I think that's it for me. I hope everybody got some information and kind of got a bit of a sense of what to expect. Obviously my experience, disclaimer, isn't everybody's experience, and that it can vary quite a bit, but I hope that everybody it got something out of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Roxana, for coming today. This is a really good presentation. And thank you everyone too for showing up. So next week is the Southern Nevada Career Fair as well. I just want to say that STEM Day is on our October 13th, and Penta will also be coming on the 15th. So look out for that as well. But yeah, other than that, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Roxana. Sorry, it's late.
Yeah, I get it.
But yeah, thank you for coming, and hope everyone has a great rest of your night.
All right, thank you, everybody. All right.